Hi. So this is a really important topic to cover. This is about the common interpretation errors that has pretty much saturated the Bible scholars, a lot of the pastors around the world when it comes to Daniel chapter 11. Lots of information on this here to help people to see that this interpretation doesn't hold water. They're skipping kings, they're adding kings, they're skipping years, they're adding years, and they are twisting historic events to make them seem like their theory works. I'm claiming that there's some major interpretation errors. Daniel chapter 11 was never ever about ancient times from verses 2 through verse 45. I'm claiming that they are about our day. In Daniel chapter 11, I'm claiming that verses 2 through 45 are all in chronological order. There's no major time gaps. So what we're looking for is that as you read Daniel chapter 11, the first few verses, do you see that there's room to skip kings and skip years and add years? So this is going to be interesting to get your take on it, to see what you think, because as you're going to see, we're going to be using Grok, and also I have a couple of pages on BibleScienceHappening.com where I've compiled information about this over the years, and we're going to have linked to both of these below the video here, so you can go in and look at the details. But for a lot of people, we're going to be able to just kind of go over this real quick. And for a lot of people, they're going to say, oh, yeah, I got it. Let's move on. Let's see what you got, Lowell. What's a better, more correct interpretation? So anyways, here we are. And I'm asking Grok, what is the common interpretation of Daniel chapter 11, verse 2? Now, Grok is saying that, I get it right over here. The ESV is the English Standard Version Bible. And verse 2 says, "And now I will show you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings shall arise in Persia, and a 4th shall be far richer than all of them. And when he has become strong through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Greece." The King James Version has a few words slightly different. Instead of 3 more kings, it says, "There shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia." That subtle difference right there makes a big difference. Also, down at the end of the verse, it says, "He, the 4th king, shall stir up all against the realm of Greece." In the King James Version, it is Grecia. The more correct interpretation, taking it back to the origin, is the word Javan. For now, let's just look at what the common interpretation is. Virtually all conservative Bible scholars and historians and interpreters, both ancient and modern, understand this verse as an extremely precise prophecy about the Persia Empire after Cyrus the Great, leading up to the rise of Alexander the Great. It is viewed as one of the most remarkable examples of detailed predictive prophecy in the Bible. Wow. So, guys, this is, they're putting a lot of weight on this. They're saying that this is really, really important. Well, okay, let's go ahead and break it down, Grok. So Grok goes ahead and points out that Cyrus the Great, he ruled until 530 BC. And he's not counted as one of the 3 because he was currently in that capacity there as a king. So then they start with his son, Cambius II. And Cambius II ruled after his father passed away from 530 BC to 522 BC. And then we have False Meritus, and he ruled for 7 months. So we're still at 522 BC. The third is Darius I, Hystaspes, and he was from 522 BC to 486 BC. The fourth one, they claim, now this is supposed to be far richer than all of them, who stirs up all against the realm of Grecia. So this is Xerxes, and he was from 486 to 465 BC. Famous for his enormous wealth and the massive invasion of Greece back in 480 to 479 BC. Now, so he had a big invasion on Greece, 480, 479. Okay? Now look at this, guys. After Xerxes' failed invasion, Battle of Salamis and Patalae, Persia never again seriously threatened Greece, and the Persia Empire began a long decline until Alexander the Great conquered it starting in 334 BC. Now I want you to look at this. So the fourth king, he dies 465 BC. And then they talk about King Alexander the Great, 334 BC. So you see a little time gap there, right? And so here's where it gets interesting, is that I asked Grok, does that interpretation skip kings? Yes. The common interpretation does skip several Persian kings that appeared in the official Persian king list. So this is not something that they're trying to hide. These scholars, people putting forth this hypothesis, they look at these 13 kings, but out of the 13 kings, they're skipping 8 of them. Okay? And then they have all these excuses for why they do it. How many years does the common interpretation skip? Well, they get down here and they say 131 years, and 8 kings are skipped. So what is the common interpretation of Daniel chapter 11, verses 4 through 6? Look at this for verse 4. When he, this is King Alexander the Great, has arisen, his king shall be broken and divided towards the 4 winds of heaven, but not to his posterity, nor according to the authority which he ruled. So it's not going to go to his posterity, guys. Not going to go to his posterity. It's going to go to the 4 winds, okay? This is the summary of the standard interpretation. So this isn't Grok's take. This is just simply Grok saying this is what the interpretation is out there. After the sudden death of Alexander, the empire split among 4 generals. This is 323 BC. So they're saying, okay, 323 is split among the 4 generals. Okay? Well, I come down here and I go, historically, was Perdiccas made a regent to assist Philip III, who is King Alexander the Great's half-brother, and Alexander IV, King Alexander's son, who was born a few months after King Alexander the Great had died. And I'm asking, hey, was Perdiccas made a regent to assist King Philip III and Alexander IV as kings after the death of King Alexander the Great? Grok says, yeah. Perdiccas was indeed made regent, more precisely, chiliarch, and a guardian of the kings immediately after Alexander the Great's death in June of 323 BC. Well, then it did go to his posterity, didn't it? That's Grok saying, yeah, this is history. History says, yes, this is the way it played out. Grok is saying, here is what actually happened historically. And it goes through all these credentials right over here. Alexander died without naming a clear heir. His half-brother Philip III, and mentally disabled, was declared king. Roxanne was pregnant. When she later gave birth to Alexander IV, he was also declared co-king. Guys, after King Alexander died, it did go to his posterity. No mention right here of it going to the four generals right there, right? Now, as you get down over to here, then we find out that King Philip III was murdered in 317 BC by Olympias, who was King Alexander the Great mother. So King Alexander the Great mother murdered Philip III, and then Alexander IV and his mother Roxanne were murdered in 310 BC to 309 BC by Cassander. Now, again, King Alexander the Great died in 323, and Alexander IV and Roxanne, they were in prison for a while, but nonetheless, there was several years after King Alexander the Great died that King Philip and Alexander IV were the kings. So it did go to his posterity, historically accurate. Grok verifies it. So Grok does a summary right here. You can go back, you can read it and everything. And then, what year was the first year all four generals were in the four main kingdoms? So the common interpretation is that after King Alexander the Great dies, then it was split up to his four generals. Well, historically, as we find out, that it finally ended up going to all four generals 301 BC. About 22 years after the death of King Alexander the Great, it finally got sorted out, and it was messy to where they'd say, yeah, now these are the four generals. These are the four generals. 22 years later. All right. So, it says before 301 BC, the map was still fluid. So there's a lot that went on between about 315 BC to 301 BC. A lot of back and forth. It was not clean. Now, getting over here to verse 5, and what I want to do is I want to go back up and have you read verse 5. The king of the south shall become strong, but one of his princes shall be stronger than he, and shall rule. So they say the common interpretation is the king of the south is Ptolemy the First, and then one of the princes, stronger, is Seleucus Nectar. And the problem with that is that Seleucus was never a prince to Ptolemy. And yet, to make their hypothesis work, they skip those little details right there. Now it gets really interesting. But but before we do that, let's get over here to verse 6. And after some years, they shall make an alliance. Who's they? In verse 5, it was saying the king of the south shall become strong, and one of his princes shall be stronger than he, and shall rule. Okay, so after some years, they shall make an alliance. And the daughter of the king of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the strength of her arm. She shall be given up. Well, they're saying that, well, this is relating to a great diplomatic marriage in 552 to 551 BC. Now remember, the four generals were ruling in their four areas, finally settled down in 301 BC. So this is like 50 years later. And who this marriage is between is not the original king in verse 5. Ptolemy the first is not him, it's his son. And then the other king of the north isn't that prince guy, it's Antiochus the second, who is the grandson of Seleucus over here. So Ptolemy II gave his daughter Berenice to Antiochus II, this is the grandson of the prince who becomes stronger, and then Ptolemy I. So this is really getting convoluted, right, guys? Anyways, down here it does show that more in detail. So in verse 5, the king of the south is Ptolemy I. And then one of his princes is Seleucus, who was never the prince to Ptolemy, by the way. And then in verse 6, the king of the south is not Ptolemy I, it's his son, Ptolemy II. And the king of the north is not Seleucus, it's his grandson, Antiochus. So, and that's how we skip those 50 years. Well, the other kings have died, and then it goes over to these guys. And then I ask, historically, was Berenice given up? And were they that brought her given up? And he that begat her given up? And he that strengthened her given up? And bottom line is that Grok finally gets around to saying, okay, from the time that she went over to get married, and here's how I phrased it. How long from the time was there between the time Berenice went to the king of the north to make an agreement to the time when she was given up? And he that begat her was given up, and they that brought her was given up, and he that strengthened her was given up. And Grok lays it out right here. And he says, total elapsed time from Berenice's arrival to the final massacre was 5.5 to 6 years. And how the common interpretation twists the verbiage of the historic events to try and make it fit what Daniel chapter 11 verse 6 says. It's, you know, it is what it is. That interpretation is out there. But when you take a look at what the more accurate interpretation is, I think that you're going to agree, oh yeah, this makes a lot more sense. Okay, so that is a little insight about the common interpretation of the few verses in the beginning of Daniel chapter 11. I also have over at BibleScienceHappening.com, I'll have a link to this page as well. And at this page over here, I go into, so you'll have the link to be able to look at that. I have some charts over here that I found on the internet that helps to explain as well. And so lots of information on this here to help people to see that this interpretation doesn't hold water. They're skipping kings, they're adding kings, they're skipping years, they're adding years, and they are twisting historic events to make them seem like their theory works. So there we go.